I'm gonna give everybody about one more minute to get in here, and then we'll get going. All right, let me share my screen, get going here. So if you don't have the notes opened up already, we are doing 1.5a today. Okay, so today we're going to start here with just A. So if you're needing to get the notes, go ahead and get those notes out.
And it's just 1.5A today, right?
Yes, just A today.
Okay.
All right. So like I said, we are going to begin 1.5 today. This will be our last week of Unit 1. So we're going to do 1.5 this week. We'll do A today, B tomorrow, and then C on Wednesday. And then we will do a review. You'll have a quiz on Wednesday over 1.4, 1.5. And then you will have a review day on Thursday, and then Unit 1 test will be on Friday of this week. Okay, so crazy, but basically every unit that we do is 2 weeks. Nah, I take that back. Not basically, it is exactly that. All right, we have 9 weeks in this quarter, and so the last week is finals prep, so that leaves us 8 weeks, and we have 4 units to get through in those 8 weeks. Crazy. So we'll have a unit exam every other Friday. So Unit 1 this Friday, 2 weeks, Unit 2, 2 weeks, Unit 3, 2 weeks, Unit 4, and then the finals. Okay. So that's kind of what this week looks like. I graded your guys' quizzes that you took. I went through and fixed the 2 questions that need to be fixed. I gave everybody points for the 1 question that didn't have a correct answer on it. The other question, the answer key was just incorrect. So I just had to go through and grade those on my own. And so I went through and fixed those. If you had the correct answer, then I gave you points for that. So the quiz is graded. I'm going to try getting in the next day or 2 all your grades transferred from Schoology over to Infinite Campus. So probably by Wednesday or Thursday, all of your grades on IC on Infinite Campus should be updated and should be correct. Okay, so I'm going to try getting that going here in the next few days. I think that's all the house cleaning stuff I have. Any questions about kind of just logistics from anybody?
I thought we weren't doing any finals with the online classes.
We do have finals. It's the last 2 days of the quarter, and they actually changed the schedule around. So it's October 22nd and 23rd. Okay, so October 22nd, 23rd, you'll have, they sent us the schedule today. It'll be shortened days. On those 2 days, you'll take your first and second final on that Thursday. You'll take the third and fourth final on that Friday. And then you guys will have the Monday off, I believe, and then we'll start the second quarter after that. Any other questions? Make sure, if you have not gotten one yet, that you're getting a stylus. Right, it gets tough to type with your finger. It's tough to write with your finger on your touchscreen. So you need to have something to help you out there. So like I said before, some of you guys are typing in answers. That's tough as well. We're going to do a little activity today at the end of class where you're going to have to write out questions, answers, all right, using a touchscreen. So make sure if you haven't gotten that, get a cheap one if you haven't. All right, let's get started. So 1.5a. As you can see on this first screen here, 1.5 is all about absolute value. All right, so far we've talked about just linears. We talked about solving them, graphing them, and then we talked about inequalities. We talked about solving inequalities. We talked about graphing inequalities. Now we're going to do the exact same thing for absolute values. We're going to talk about what an absolute value is. We're going to talk about graphing an absolute value. All right, that's pretty common all the way through this whole class. We'll talk about how to solve a specific type of function, and then we'll talk about how to graph that specific type of function. And we'll just learn a new function and then repeat that same thing. How do we solve it? How do we graph it? All right, and so you're kind of seeing that in this unit 1. How do we solve linears? How do we graph them? How do we solve inequalities? How do we graph them? Same thing with absolute value. Okay, so that's where we're going to start today. So just kind of to reiterate and to review, absolute value means there was probably a point in your life where they told you it simply means it's always positive. Okay, technically what absolute value means is distance from 0. All right, and so what we're talking about when we're using these absolute value bars, so these 2 vertical bars that go around anything really, any expression, is this here. And so what this is saying is the absolute value of x equals 3. So what that is telling us is that x has to be 3 units from 0. That's all that's saying. All right, and so in the past it was different because you had something like x equals the absolute value of -4, and you're just like, oh, well, that means it has to be +4. Okay, that's true, but what it really means is distance from 0. And the reason it's always positive is because distance is always positive. Okay, direction doesn't matter when we're talking about distance, and so distance, it has direction. Yeah, I might go north a certain ways, or I might go south, or I might go east, or I might go west. But no matter which direction I go, my distance to that direction is still positive. Okay, and so when we're talking about distance here, what that's telling us is x could be +3 or -3, right? Because I could plug +3 in here, I get 3 equals 3. I could plug -3 in here, and -3 is still 3 units from 0. So x can be -3 as well. Yes, that's true. When I plug that -3 in there, it makes it positive. All right, but we have to think about it a little bit different when we're doing this. We can't just think positive. We have to think distance from 0. All right, and so that's why x can be positive or -3 in this situation. Second one, same type of thing. This is saying x is 10 units from 0. Okay, that's what that's telling us. Absolute value, distance from 0. And so we know there's two different places that are 10 units from 0. We know that 10 is 10 units from 0. Negative 10 is also 10 units from 0. All right, so both of those work. Number 3, what can x be there? Can x be anything?
5 or -5.
So be careful, because we know absolute value. Let's think about this. Let's say we put absolute value of 5, or let's say we put absolute value of -5. When I take that absolute value, remember, distance can't be negative. Okay, when I take the absolute value of 5, what does it equal? Positive 5, right? When I take the absolute value of -5, what does it equal? Positive 5. And so technically on this one, you're going to see some of these problems. This is something we're going to do a lot. When we have the absolute value, it can never equal a negative number. And so in this case here, this is no solution. All right, because there's no number that I can plug in right here to get this -5, because no matter what I plug in here, it's always going to be positive. And so that does not give me a solution. Questions? We're going to have to plug in our answers a lot on these to check our solutions. This right here, you're going to notice, this is going to give you sometimes where you get no solution, or you get an answer that doesn't actually work. All right, so we're going to have to pay attention to that. You can never have just an absolute value equal a negative number. It's not possible. All right. Steps to solve an absolute value equation. Okay, so now we're looking at an equation. It's really important when we're doing this to remember, when you have absolute value, it's distance from 0. Okay, so there's going to be two different places that are that is that same distance from 0. All right, so our steps here. So it says steps to solve an absolute value equation. So we have this 2 times the quantity of the absolute value of x minus 3 plus 1 equals 11. So when we're doing this, first step is to always, this is really important, always isolate the absolute value first. Okay, so the number one thing that we're going to do is we want to get this absolute value right here, this absolute value of x minus 3, all by itself. Meaning we need to get rid of the 1, and we need to get rid of the 2. And so what it says here is we need to subtract the 1 over to make that 10, and then we need to divide everything by 2 to make that 5. All right, so first step, get the absolute value by itself. Then what this says, remember absolute value means distance from 0. This says that x minus 3 is 5 units from 0. That, if I said it in words, that is what that right there means. That means that x minus 3 is 5 units from 0. And so we should know there's two different places that are 5 units from 0. 5 and -5. And so what we need to do is take this x minus 3, and we need to set it equal to positive 5. And we also need to set it equal to -5. All right, so with these absolute value equations, you're going to be setting up two separate equations. All right, for both spots that are that distance from 0. Step 3, you're simply just going to solve each of those equations by themselves. Okay, so add 3, you get 8. Add 3, you get -2. And then your final step, like I told you, and this is a big step, you have to check your answers. Okay? There are going to be times, so this word here called extraneous solutions. What that means, it's a solution, it's an answer that looks like it's right, but it doesn't actually work. Okay, so it says an apparent solution that must be rejected because it does not satisfy the original equation. So you have to take your answers, plug them back in for x to the original problem, and make sure they work. So that's what happened here. Plug in 8 right here. We get 8 minus 3 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 plus 1 is 11. That's good. Right here, plug in negative 2. Negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. But then the absolute value of negative 5 is positive 5. 5 times 2 is 10. Plus 1 is 11. So that's good. Okay, so you're going to notice I'm going to do here an example here in a second. You have to check your answers. Let's look at some examples. Number 1. First step, isolate the absolute value. Do I need to do anything to isolate the absolute value here? It's already isolated. Okay, there's nothing on the outside of my absolute value here, so step 1 is done for me. This says what's inside the absolute value bars are 7 units from 0. We know there's 2 different places that are 7 units from 0. 7, negative 7. So we have to set up x minus 5 equal to 7 and x minus 5 equal to negative 7. And then solve both of those. So add 5, add 5, and then check our work. So I'm just going to plug it back in. When you're checking your work, I don't have to see that. Okay, if you can easily just look at this and be like 12 minus 5 is 7, 7 equals 7, good. Negative 2 minus 5 is negative 7. Absolute value of negative 7 is 7, that's good. I'm fine with that. Okay, you don't have to show me you plugging it back in. If it's easier for you to see by actually writing out your work, I am perfectly fine with that as well. Okay, so I'm okay with either one, but you have to check your answers. Because you're going to see here in a second, there's times where we get an answer, but it doesn't actually work. So here we get absolute value of 7 equals 7. That tells me that this is a good answer. Right here, I get absolute value of negative 7 equals 7. We know absolute value of negative 7 is just 7, which tells me that is a good answer as well. Questions? Second one. Here we have to isolate absolute value. So right here is my absolute value. I need to get that all by itself. So I need to get rid of anything on the outside. So that's my 2 here. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. Giving me absolute value of 5x minus 10 equals 45. Again, that tells me this is 45 units from 0. So I need to set up my 2 equations. 5x minus 10 equals the positive version, and 5x minus 10 equals the negative version. I think one of the mistakes I probably see the most on these problems, people try to flip the signs right here when whatever's with the absolute value. Whatever is with the absolute value does not change. Notice 5x minus 10, 5x minus 10. That doesn't change. The only thing that changes is the thing on the opposite side of the equal sign. Okay? So then we solve. Add 10, divide by 5, add 10, divide by 5. And then the last thing we have to do is check our work. All right, so you have to plug it back in and check your work. So 2 times the absolute value of 5 times 11 minus 10 equals 90. So let's check that. We get 55 minus 10 is 45. 45 times 2 is 90. That tells me this is a good answer. Over here, 2 times absolute value of 5 times negative 7 minus 10 equals 90. That gives me negative 35 minus 10 is negative 45. Absolute value of negative 45 is positive 45. 45 times 2 is 90. That's a good answer. Questions before we do the last two? All right, let's look at number 3. So these are the last two we're going to do. Same thing. Okay, I don't need to isolate it all here because the absolute value is already by itself. So I'm simply going to say 2x plus 13. Notice right there, that doesn't change. Positive version of 4x and 2x plus 13, that doesn't change, equals the negative version of this. So even though there's an x there now, I'm still just setting it equal to the negative version of 4x. And then we solve. So I want to get all the x's on the same side. I want to get all the numbers on the same side. So I'm going to subtract 4x. I'm going to subtract 13. I'm going to divide by negative 2. I'm going to leave it as a fraction, 13 halves. Same thing over here. I'm going to add 4x. I'm going to subtract 13. I'm going to divide by 6. Yes, I agree with you. Those are some nasty answers. That is something that happens more in this class. Okay, we are going to get more fractional answers. It's okay. I understand it's not as easy. You feel like it might be wrong. Okay, but that's okay. We still have to check our work. So we're still plugging this back in. So we're saying absolute value of 2 times, if it helps you to write this as 6.5, I'm okay with that when you're checking your work. Plus 13 equals 4 times 6.5. That gives us absolute value of 13 plus 13 equals, this gives me 26. 13 plus 13 equals 26. That's a good answer. Over here, plug it in. 2 times, I'm leaving it as negative 13/6 plus 13 equals 4 times negative 13/6. Now I want to show you something that makes your life a lot easier here. No matter what, when you take a positive times a negative, what do we get? A negative. A negative. Okay? And so I don't even really care what number this is. I know this is going to give me some negative. So what this is going to give me is the absolute value of something. To be honest with you, I don't even care what it is, equals some negative number. Well, we should know, can an absolute value equal a negative number? No. An absolute value cannot equal a negative number because it's a distance isn't negative. And so without me even figuring out what these numbers are, I know this doesn't work. Now, could you just figure out what they are and see if they don't equal each other? Yes. Okay, what you're going to get is you're going to get some, you're going to get a positive number on the left. You're going to get a negative number on the right. So we're going to get 26 thirds over here. Over here, we're going to get, what is that, negative 13 thirds plus 13. And so over here, we have this negative 26 thirds. Over here, when we take the absolute value, it's going to be positive. That doesn't work. Okay, that part doesn't work. So we only have one answer on that question compared to two. I want you guys to go ahead and try doing number 4. Make sure you isolate the absolute value first. Keep working. I'm going to work it out here. Check your answer after you're done. Okay, there's your answer you should have got. All right, next thing we are going to do is we're going to get a little bit of practice with, I need to stop sharing this. We're gonna get a little practice with this. And so one thing that I like to do if we were actually in class is some sort of way for you guys to do these problems and then show me your work so that I can know for sure if you know what you're doing. It's harder here. So one thing another Trig teacher and I were talking about is a way to get it so where you guys can immediately show me your work. We can immediately check it, and then it has to be correct before you can then move on. Okay, and so this is what we're going to try today. Your homework for today is 1.5a. Okay, it's 1.5a. That's already on Schoology, so that is your homework for tonight. So what we're going to do, actually, let me explain the backside first. What you're going to do here in a second is you're going to go to this website. It's a Jamboard. I don't know if you've ever used Jamboard through Google before. Basically, it's kind of like a Google Doc where everybody can write on it at once and everybody can see the edits as they're being edited. And so what I have created is a 19-slide Jamboard with 2 questions that everybody's going to be working on, which are similar questions from our homework today, or for our homework and from our notes. And so what you're going to do is you're going to work out those problems. I'm going to tell you if you are correct or not. Once you get them both correct, you can leave, go work on your homework. Okay? If I tell you something is incorrect, then you need to fix it until it's correct. So you have to have some way to write on the screen here. Right? It's going to be a Jamboard. You have to write your work on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post the link in the chat right now. And then I also just emailed everybody the link as well. Okay, so I emailed, I hope so, the link to you guys. So let's say, so the reason I did that is if somebody is using like an iPad, you can get there. If you're just on your Chromebook, just go straight through the chat. You're going to pick one of those 19 slides. You're going to write your name in the box at the top center, and then you're going to work out those 2 problems.
It's currently on like view only, so I don't know if there's like something we should do.
It
It's
won't let
say-
us edit.
You guys can't edit it at all?
No, it's only on view only.
Let me check and see here. There we go. What about now? Somebody give me some feedback. Can you guys write on it now?
Yeah, they can now.
Perfect. Okay, so you're going to pick one of those 19 slides. You're going to do those 2 problems. Once you are done with those 2 problems, I will put a check mark if you are correct. If it's incorrect, I'll type and let you know what you need to fix. So like I said, you need a stylus, so work on getting that if you don't have one. If I can't read your writing, then I'm not grading it. Also, make sure you put a circle or a square around your final answer so that I know that you have checked it and it is a final answer. Some of you guys are working without your name. Make sure you put your name in the box.
I don't have enough space on these to show check where I can check my work.
Are you using a stylus?
Yeah.
Try zooming in. Can you zoom in on these? Yeah, zoom in when you're doing your work. You'll be able to write smaller.
Okay.
Wait, why do I have to check it if it's negative?
Because just because x equals negative doesn't mean it's incorrect. It just, when you plug it in, it can't equal a negative number. Does that make sense?
All right.
Yeah, x can be negative. It just can't give you a negative answer when you plug it back in.
Hey, Mr. Jett, so I worked it out on a piece of paper. Is there anywhere I can scan that and like take that picture and paste it on the thing?
Yeah, there's an add image on the left side. You could probably do that if you want to.
Yeah, is that all right if I do that?
That's fine.
Yeah, it's not letting me really zoom into it.
Upload it to your Google Drive.
You can't click the zoom button in the top.
Like you can take a photo on.
I can, but it just makes the thing smaller with it.
I was writing on it yesterday and it seemed like there was enough room. So once you get 2 check marks, 1 on each, then you are good.
I'm ready for you to check mine.
Okay.
Number 5.
Mine's done and on slide 1.
Okay, I'll be right there. I'm just kind of going through as checking as I go. So if you are done, you need me to check it, let me know. Again, once you're done, you get 2 check marks. Then you can do your homework. Don't forget to circle your answers once they're fine. Once you've checked them and you know they're good, make sure you circle them.
Mr. Jet, can you check my first one again?
Yes, I will. A lot of you guys are not checking. Make sure you check. Also, x can be negative. That's okay. All right, so just because x equals a negative number does not mean it's incorrect. It's when we plug it back in, the absolute value cannot equal a negative number. So make sure you don't confuse those two. It's okay for x to equal -4. It just can't be the absolute value equals -4. That's the difference. All right. It looks like everybody's not going to quite get done. If I haven't checked yours, I tried to write on all of them. If I saw maybe a mistake here or there, like make sure you check it. Make sure you're plugging it back into the original equation. We are going to be doing something like this again tomorrow. Okay, you will be doing something like this again tomorrow. So I highly recommend you get a stylus. Okay, whether you're writing on your Chromebook or you're writing on an iPad or you're writing on your phone. Okay, phone would be pretty tough, it'd be pretty small. Okay, you need something to write on your touchscreen. Okay, we will be doing this again tomorrow. Any questions before we go? Okay, homework is 1.5a. I will see you guys tomorrow.